We've heard senior Chinese officials openly talking about setting up re-education camps in Taiwan after an invasion. We've also heard threats about forcibly removing people with Japanese ancestry. And we've even seen Xi Jinping declare that any foreign interference will crash against the so-called Great Wall of Flesh and Blood.
谁妄想这样干，必将在14多亿中国人民用血肉 筑成的钢铁长城面前，碰得头破血流。
If that's not chilling, I don't know what is. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. My name is Stan. Today I've got something both ridiculous and deadly serious to talk about. Because believe it or not, April Fool's Day this year came with a very special performance from none other than the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. While the rest of the world was busy laughing at harmless pranks, Xi Jinping decided to roll out yet another round of aggressive military drills around Taiwan, because nothing says peaceful rise quite like warplanes and warships.
A few moments later.
A few moments later.
Now let's talk about the absurdity of the operation's name. This time, there was no official name of the drills, as last time they called the exercises Joint Sword, which basically is plagiarism. Still, there was a whole ad campaign on the Chinese internet with the word 进逼, pushing in, being mentioned a couple of times. If you speak Mandarin, it sounds like something you can see only on the websites for adults. One has to wonder if the entire department responsible for the naming in the People's Liberation Army is just a room full of repressed, emotionally stunted men in uniforms who've never once interacted with women. It's either that, or they truly think that military intimidation and sexual frustration belong in the same conversation. If the CCP spent as much time modernizing its message as it does obsessing over Taiwan, they might actually be taken more seriously on the world stage. But instead, we get juvenile slogans slapped onto propaganda videos that are so poorly edited they wouldn't pass a freshman video class. And while we're laughing at this surface-level silliness, make no mistake, this whole show is a strategic distraction with very real consequences. These military maneuvers are not designed to win battles, they're designed to win headlines, stoke nationalism at home and provoke anxiety abroad. The CCP is desperately trying to shift focus away from its failing domestic policies, whether it's skyrocketing youth unemployment, a property market in freefall, or an international image that is rapidly collapsing under the weight of its own aggression. And just like every authoritarian regime before it, when the internal pressure builds up, the leadership seeks an external enemy to demonize. Right now, Taiwan is that enemy, chosen not because it's a threat, but because it's a symbol of everything the CCP cannot control. But here's the irony. Every time the CCP tries to project strength through these military stunts, it only further exposes its insecurity. Instead of making Taiwan weaker or more isolated, Xi's provocative actions have had the opposite effect. They've made Taiwan stronger diplomatically, more united domestically, and more visible globally. The United States, under its current administration, is filled with officials who are not only deeply skeptical of the Chinese regime, but also fundamentally committed to pushing back against its expansionist agenda. From the Secretary of State to the Secretary of Defense to the President's closest advisors, we're seeing a united front that views Taiwan's security not as a regional matter, but as a pillar in the entire Indo-Pacific strategy. And with recent shifts in the US military doctrine, it's clear that defending Taiwan is no longer a question of if. It's a priority of when and how. Just take a look at the recent Pentagon memo, where the top priority for the US military is to deter China from occupying Taiwan. It's obvious that the US is shifting to strategic clarity very swiftly. Even Europe, long criticized for being too soft on Beijing, is now changing its tone. For the first time, the European Union has publicly declared that peace in the Taiwan Strait is a matter of core interest, meaning that even Brussels now sees the danger of allowing China to dictate terms in East Asia. From Tokyo to Canberra, from Manila to Seoul, democratic nations across the Indo-Pacific are coming together not because of ideology alone, but because they understand that if Taiwan falls, the rest of the region becomes infinitely more vulnerable. What's emerging is not just a series of partnerships, but a genuine collective deterrence mechanism, an international safety net that aims to stop the next war before it begins. In other words, China's saber-rattling has galvanized the very alliances it hoped to divide. And now let's take a closer look at with the message China is sending through its propaganda. In its latest so-called promotional video, the PLA refers to Taiwan's democratic government as a nest of pests, vermin that must be eradicated. The language should sound familiar because it's lifted straight from the playbook of 20th century fascist regimes. When you start dehumanizing your political opponents, you're not preparing for reunification, you're preparing for genocide. We've heard senior Chinese officials openly talking about setting up re-education camps in Taiwan after an invasion. We've also heard threats about forcibly removing people with Japanese ancestry. And we've even seen Xi Jinping declare that any foreign interference will crash against the so-called Great Wall of Flesh and Blood.
谁妄想这样干，必将在14多亿中国人民用血肉铸成的钢铁长城面前碰得头破血流。
If that's not chilling, I don't know what is. Week after week, China's military has been engaging in what it calls joint combat patrols, sending aircraft and warships near Taiwan's southwestern airspace in waters of Kim and Matsu. These aren't isolated incidents. The CCP is using its military, coast guard, and even maritime militias in a constant campaign of hybrid intimidation. Since 2013, we've seen the PLA carry out long-range naval and air exercises, integrating their forces and practicing routes through the Miyako and Bashi channels, key choke points around Taiwan. This military expansion isn't just targeting Taiwan, it also threatens Japan, the Philippines, and other nations along the First Island chain. China's ambitions are not defensive, they're imperialist. And their growing military presence is destabilizing peace across the Indo-Pacific. In response, Taiwan has stepped up. Defense spending has increased from 300 billion to over 500 billion NT dollars, and President Lai Ching-te has committed to raising the defense budget to over 3% of the GDP. Taiwan is modernizing its military and adapting training models from NATO and the US, ensuring that armed forces are ready for any challenge. But Taiwan is not alone. China's aggression is backfiring, drawing democratic allies closer together. The US State Department has officially condemned Beijing drills. The European Union too has voiced support for peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait and warned the CCP not to change the status quo through force. We're also seeing increasing cooperation between Taiwan and Japan's navies, monitoring Chinese aircraft carriers together. Across the First Island chain and all around the Indo-Pacific, from Korea to Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, and even to Australia, nations are working more closely than ever before. Following the Trump's administration's strategic framework, the US defense priorities are clearly shifting focus from Europe and the Middle East toward the Indo-Pacific. Taiwan specifically has been highlighted as a crucial line of defense that must not fall to China. Because of Beijing's belligerence, Washington is now moving more military assets into this region, while delegating other global responsibilities to NATO in Europe and allies in the Middle East. The Indo-Pacific has become the main theater of strategic attention. Meanwhile, back in China, despite a slowing economy and soaring youth unemployment, which in some regions reaches over 40%, the CCP continues to pour billions into the military. Instead of investing in healthcare or job creation, the regime prioritizes military intimidation. But this massive buildup is also straining China's internal stability. Xi Jinping, increasingly nervous, is using external conflicts to distract from the domestic problems. This is dangerous, especially for neighboring countries. Make no mistake, these military drills may not change the status quo today, but they reveal a pattern of escalation. They provoke resentment amongst the Taiwanese, concerning the United States, and alarm across the democratic world. China's goal isn't just Taiwan. It wants to rewrite global rules, weaken democratic alliances, and replace a value-based order with authoritarian dominance. But ironically, through its reckless actions, the CCP is only making Taiwan stronger, more visible, and more supported than ever. We all know that Taiwan wants to maintain peace, stability, and the democratic freedoms its people have worked so hard to protect. It is China, specifically the CCP, that wants to rewrite borders, rewrite history, and rewrite the rules of global engagement. Xi Jinping is not only trying to take the island, he is trying to reorder the entire world around authoritarianism. He wants to weaken the United States, undermine Europe, and make international institutions obedient to Beijing's will. But here's the twist. The more he tries to do this, the faster the world is waking up. And for that, maybe we owe him a tiny thank you. Taiwan is more than a geopolitical flashpoint. It's a beacon of democracy, standing defiantly at the edge of authoritarian darkness. And while the CCP continues to threaten, provoke, and bluster, Taiwan continues to build, to innovate, and to inspire. To the soldiers of the PLA, if you're watching, remember this: your real enemy isn't in Taipei, your real enemy is in Zhongnanhai. Your real enemy is the dictatorship that keeps you poor, silent, and disposable. Don't fight for tyranny, fight for truth, fight for dignity. And if you ever dare to rise up, the world will not look away. Thanks for watching. If you value this kind of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. This is Stan. I see you in the next one. Bye bye.